The sky is where most birds are at home, free to soar and dip and do what humans have always dreamed of doing: fly. In the modern world, birds, by and large, are gentle creatures. They represent no threat, nothing to be afraid of. In prehistory, it was quite a different story. Does the name Andalgalornis mean anything? Probably not. Unlike T-Rex, Andalgalornis doesn't dot the geography of the imagination. But if this beast is not familiar, it should be. Andalgalornis was no pigeon. Rather, it was the most feared predator of its time and place. Not reptile or mammal. Andalgalornis was a bird, a killer bird. Birds appeared about 150 million years ago. Archaeopteryx, the oldest known species, was the size of a magpie, hardly awe-inspiring. Archaeopteryx, however, could do something nothing else on Earth could do. It could fly, and so could most of its descendants, but not all. Like today's ostriches, Andalgalornis couldn't lift off the ground. In exchange for that inability, it got the power to kill. With a skull longer than a horse's, with a razor-sharp beak, Andalgalornis was a terrifying predator, standing 5 feet tall and weighing 250 pounds. It lived in what would become the Badlands of Argentina. Then, though, South America was very different. The Andes Mountains hadn't risen. The continent, a seemingly endless windswept plain, was a great isolated island on which flesh-eating birds, like Andalgalornis, became the top predators. Such birds are the special interest of paleontologist Bob Chandler.
All of these killer birds are some of the most spectacular large birds that ever lived. I think we can say that these birds, with their enormous sizes, that they were actually the heirs to the dinosaurs, that they were able to kill as efficiently as some of the larger dinosaurs could.
Killer birds evolved in South America 25 million years ago, and with no competition from predatory mammals, ruled the roost for 20 million years. Called Forus racoids, South America's killer birds came in several species, ranging in size from medium to gigantic. They had beaks that sliced through bone and jaws that simply crushed it. Andalgalornis made a modern hawk look like an insect. And Onyctornis, another killer, was twice as big as Andalgalornis. Its skull was more than 3 feet long. These birds had their choice of prey, the enormous Megatherium, 10 times bigger than a modern sloth. The odd Glyptodon, the size of a small car and armored like a tank, and a host of other tasty morsels. Prehistory's flightless predator birds were fast, just as modern emus and ostriches are. They could reach 40 miles an hour and used this speed in combination with surprise to hunt successfully. But not all prehistoric birds were earthbound. Some could fly. Indeed, the largest of them, the largest bird ever, could take to the air. Today, the Condor is the world's largest bird. The sky over Argentina is its home. The same sky that was once home to Argentavis magnificens, wingspan 27 feet, weight 170 pounds. How did this bird get off the ground? Perhaps as its distant relative, the condor, does. It stands up, unfolds its wings, faces the wind and waits for a gust to help it lift off. For Argentavis, that would have had to be some gust. Once the great bird was airborne, everything below was a target. Argentavis would swoop down, carry off its prey, and swallow it whole. The beginning of the end for South America's huge predator birds came when their continent collided with North America, roughly 3 million years ago. The collision formed a land bridge, which brought competition south. And over time, the land, climate, and vegetation radically changed. Prey became scarce, then disappeared. Many giant predator birds, like Andogolornis, did too. But some used the bridge as an escape route to the north. One was the 6-foot Titanus walleri. Bob Chandler has found fossils of this bird in the waters of Florida's Santa Fe River.
Scuba diving has to be one of the more exotic and fascinating standpoints of my research because, in fact, here I am underwater trying to excavate and take good data, producing many thousands of fossils for my own and other research. Sometimes you actually lose track of time while you're collecting these important bone beds, and you're looking for more and more fossils.
The Titanus walleri fossils Chandler found told him the bird was even bigger than Andogolornis. But more remarkable was the revelation that Titanus and other flightless killer birds had evolved wings different from those of any other bird living or extinct. Wings that had been modified to act as powerful arms capable of holding prey down.
Is that it now has a flatted proximal end, which would not allow the bone to be tucked back under the ulna radius or the lower limb bone.
So it was their unique wings, unable to provide them flight, that actually helped them become such lethal predators. For Titanus walleri, the migration north bought time. It learned to compete with mammalian predators, and thus was able to survive its southern brethren by 2 million years. But in the end, it too succumbed, and ended the remarkable saga of the killer birds. There are few things on earth cute as a kangaroo. Symbols of the island continent of Australia, these animals, while they have a reputation as boxers, or at least kickboxers, are generally thought of as quaint, cuddly, and sometimes comical, never aggressive or predatory. But deep in prehistory, not all kangaroos were the gentle creatures alive today. Deep in prehistory, there was a different kind of kangaroo hopping around. Call them killer kangaroos. Millions of years ago, these flesh-eaters roamed Australia's plains, armed with rapier teeth, voracious appetites, and a disposition just the opposite of their modern cousins. Like those cousins, ancient kangaroos were marsupial mammals. Their young grew in the mother's pouch. The basic resemblance between past and present kangaroos ended right there. Predator kangaroos stood about 5 feet tall and were burlier than the modern version. Sharp-toothed, they almost certainly used their incisors to stab their prey. Discovering evidence of this kind of behavior was a shock to paleontologist Michael Archer, who found the fearsome skeleton in the kangaroo closet.
Here's an assortment of the sorts of things that we're finding in Riversley about 20 million years ago. One of the ones that just blew our mind right in the beginning was a thing that ought to be a representative of one of the gentlest, cutest sort of groups, a kangaroo. This thing, this offense to the senses, was a flesh-eating kangaroo.
The landscape of prehistory, especially the landscape of prehistoric Australia, and surprise, surprise, prehistoric South America, is strewn with carnivorous marsupials that are eerily reminiscent of contemporary animals, familiar animals. This saber-toothed marsupial terrorized South America with fangs that could have been 6 or 7 inches long. This boar hyena, the size of a grizzly bear, ate whatever it wanted. Predators like these flourished in South America for some 60 million years. By 2 million years ago, though, they were all but gone, outcompeted by placental mammals, ferocious saber-toothed cats and great bears whose young grew not in a pouch, but in the mother's womb. In Australia, however, marsupial predators kept hunting. Among the most spectacular of them was the Marsupial Lion, a carnivore of the first order that used its lower incisors as lethal stabbing devices against a whole smorgasbord of prey. Giant herbivorous kangaroos, giant wombats, and lots of other delicious marsupials. Most amazingly, these animals did not die out until some 30,000 years ago, a split second in the Earth's history. By then, Aboriginal peoples were in Australia, so human beings must have come into contact with teeth like these.
That could cut a leg off a kangaroo.
It probably wasn't a pleasant experience. Other Australian predators hung on. The Marsupial wolf, also called the Tasmanian tiger, became extinct in captivity in 1936. It's about passing time, so much time it's unimaginable, and about the changes time inevitably brings. The great predators of the prehistoric world have been buried under those changes. And yet, because of their size or speed, strength or intelligence, they fascinate us still. We look back at them in awe, imaginations fired. We wonder, what if they were still here? What would the world be like if they were? Who knows? But just thinking about it keeps these hunters alive, even if all that is left are fossils.